Welcome to this presentation entitled Become Your Own Guinea Pig, with the subtitle Using Your Own Personalized Digital Twin. And this lecture was to a large extent the same as a lunch lecture that I gave in the Swedish Parliament about a week ago. And but it has two extra slides which are specific for a lecture that I'm giving now at Wolfram, and I will tell you when these two extra slides are given. And it was actually not given in the Swedish Parliament because of the COVID-19 pandemic, but it was given online. And this is an English version of that. So I, who am giving this lecture, is called Gunnar Cedersund. I'm in Linköping University, where I'm heading a research group, which is located in Sweden. And I've been working for 20 years to develop this type of personalized digital twins. And this has lately led to the creation of a spin-off company called Sund, which is Swedish for healthy or sound. And we want to inspire people and hospitals and the society to make sound medical decisions using these type of digital twins that you see here, symbolically represented as a digital twin here, a computer decision tree or a circuit of a cedar tree here. And cedar in Swedish is ceder, which is the first part of my last name, and Sund is the name of the company. So this whole logotype is in a way a little miniature or a little symbolic digital twin, you could say, of my last name or of me. While it also encapsulates a digital twin here. And the key question when figuring out if you want to use a digital twin or any type of model is how similar is it to the thing that it should mimic. So in this case, a digital twin should mimic me. So the question is, how similar is this to me? And when you then compare this with other types of models, so for instance, animal experiments, if you want to replace animal experiments, then you need to put them in the same axis as well. And what I will show you now is that for some applications, not all applications, but for some applications, a digital twin is actually equally good or even better than a corresponding animal at mimicking a person. And in such cases, you can save lots of money, lots of time, and you're also personalized in a way that an animal never can be. It's not for all applications, but it's application specific, but for some applications this holds. And throughout the presentation, I will have a specific focus on the thing that is on everybody's mind, namely Corona. So Corona questions that are on all of our minds is how to combine all available data to do analysis of the data to find out what is the status right now, how have earlier actions impacted what has happened so far, and what is the best course of action right now to, for instance, flatten the curve or treat the patient. And this is just an example of a question that we've had throughout history. Other questions is climate change or putting a man on the moon or developing nuclear power and understanding the universe in a very foundational way. And a joint thing for all these challenges is that mathematical modeling is really at the heart of how to do things. It's at the heart of how to predict what will happen in the future, how the climate will change, how to build space rockets, or how to know that the space-time is bent, or how to develop nuclear power. And mathematical models is also something that I have been working with for 20 years. I've collaborated with experts on blood flow and heart, liver function, brain, fat tissue, muscle, beta cells, immune system, to develop mathematical models based on their data and their expertise and hypothesis testing. And here you see publications where I'm a co-author of all of these publications, which develops models for all of these different organs. And now, this has been done by many research groups all over the world. But what is unique is that we have managed now in the last year or two to combine all of these models into a single interconnected model that describes the general physiology in a person, And then by adding patient-specific data from sensors or journals or imputations, you get a digital twin. So a specific person's computer model, which both describes the physiology and via machine learning the statistical properties like risks using a hybrid technology. And here you see our first digital twin that we created, what he looks like on the outside, and on the inside here you see his fat deposits and muscle deposits. And here you see a comparison between data and simulations for blood sugar meal responses. So here as a function of time you see the concentration of the blood sugar levels. And then the way that we do, and the way that I think one should do when analyzing models, is to use some of the data for estimation, for training the model. So here the breakfast response. So here we train the patient-specific parameters, and then we see, without changing the parameters, but by just looking into the diary of what we want to do. Here he ate a second meal, lunch, of a certain composition. And then we could do a prediction based on that. And we compare that with data after the prediction is done. And that step is called the validation step, which is basically checking, can the model correctly predict some things? And only if it can, then we move on to actually using the model in more real end usage situations. And then we always have it with predictions with uncertainty, and we always keep the simulations, the application similar to where the validation has been done. These two things are both very critical to have a sound usage of modeling. And frustratingly often in the field today and out in society, when you see model predictions, they have not done these steps. And if you haven't, then I would say pay little heed to the models. So you need to find people who can work in this way and who can do all of these steps. Only then can you trust the model. And we did this not only for blood sugar meal responses, but for heart and blood flow and stress responses, brain activity, exercise, weight changes, intracellular signaling. And right now we are testing the crosstalk between all of these different processes, so that in 2021 we will have a more finished product that we can test in the clinic for better pedagogics, for personalized diagnosis and treatment, and to see if we can inspire patients to have better compliance, so that they follow treatments in a better way, or that they do more preventive actions. And this beta version of this technology was launched at a big Swedish event, which is called Almedalen, last summer. And since then we have been invited to give keynote presentations, for instance at NIH, the biggest medical hospital or university in the US, and IT Vården is the biggest Swedish IT in healthcare conference, and so on. And all of these presentations are available online on our YouTube channel. This is one of them. And a key thing here is that the model does not have to be perfect to replace animal experiments or to be useful. You need to check it for these things, but once you have done that, you just need to be as good as the alternatives. So for instance, the animal experiments. And here is a key example of when this happened. So in type 1 diabetes, the beta cell have stopped working. So then you want to develop these type of insulin pumps in insulin into the blood. An approval of the algorithm in such pumps used to be done starting with animals before you move on to human, and this step took around 4 to 6 years and costed around $100 million. But now the FDA has approved one of the sub-models that we have incorporated into our multi-level model, the one I showed you on the previous slide. And these can do this step not only much faster than 4 to 6 years. I mean, computer simulations, it takes almost no time. But it's also much cheaper. So instead of $100 million, it's less than 100,000, and without any animal experiments. And this special case was published more than 10 years ago. But the FDA has since then, a couple of years ago, only published general guidelines for when a mathematical model can be used in a more general setting. And these general guidelines are the result of a collaboration between FDA, scientists, and NASA. And as I said, NASA is using modeling in a sound way since many years. And the criteria are exactly the ones that I showed you on the previous slide. Can it fit existing data? Can it correctly predict new validation data? Can it do then new predictions with a small uncertainty? It needs to be small in order to be useful, and is there a small difference between where you did the validation and where you actually want to use the model, the applications you want to use the model for. Only if the answer to all of these questions is yes, should you use a model. So now let's move to the two specific slides for the Wolfram MathCore lecture. So I worked together with Wolfram MathCore for more than 10 years, even before they were Wolfram MathCore, just MathCore. We have, during all of these years, done joint supervision of PhD students and consultancy assignments, so worked as consultants, and this has also sometimes led to things like publications. So here are two publications that we have joined together, and this particular publication is the result of us taking a joint consultancy job with a drug development company. So this is the person of the drug development company, and this is one of the persons in Wolfram MathCore, and this is me here. Apart from that, we also translated some of the models to System Modeler, which is the software that they have developed, and this is very useful because their software is very good at handling this type of multi-level hierarchical models. We also have joint ongoing academic industry projects. So for instance, XHIDE here, which has a $12 million funding, and which is developed, the money goes to develop this type of systems biology models for inflammation in all sorts of applications, and which now of course also will include COVID-19. And I also have a recently funded COVID-19 project. This was actually approved only today, which is approved by the Wallenberg Foundation and SciLife Lab, where we take my type of digital twins, combine them with all of the many emerging COVID-19 data platforms. So for instance, SciLife Lab's data platform. And then make the models, the digital twins, able not only to describe all of the diseases that they can describe now, but also COVID-19, first using machine learning and then using this hybrid modeling that also describes the physiology. Also on the epidemiological type of models, we will take the governmental models and data and improve upon them to use these type of methods that I've described now that the FDA is using, and which is used frustratingly little in the field of epidemiology. So, we will also be able to combine more types of different data, and also to do hypothesis testing and predictions with uncertainty, and where we keep all of these things in mind. And in the end, we will not only have method transfer between, but we'll actually combine the models so that we'll have agent-based models that can fit to data and that incorporates digital twins inside the agents. So we'll have a multi-level framework for monitoring and treating COVID-19 so that we can monitor the spread of the disease on the societal level and do predictions of social and legal interventions. And on the clinical level, we can identify high-risk patients, do tailored treatments, and also understand the etiology and good drug targets. So coming back to the original presentation for the Parliament in Sweden, mathematical models and digital twins, they can enhance the human ability to reason around data, and is already used to tackle many central functions and challenges in society. And for some applications, digital twins can be as good as animal experiments at predicting what will happen in humans. In such cases, replacing the experiments give cheaper medicines, products, and healthcare. You can save, in the example I showed you, $100 million per product. And this is only to replace the animal experiments. You can do the thing that animal experiments never can do. You can have patient-specific care. And you can have faster products on the markers. You can save years in the approval process. And mathematical models need to be validated on data that is similar to the end usage. And the end usage predictions must be done with an uncertainty which takes all data and all uncertainties into account. And all of this is highly critical for COVID-19, where you need to know that you can trust a model, and you need to have models in place, because we cannot wait years for new society is at a standstill. We need to develop things as soon as we possibly can. And another comment is that research-wise, we are well leading in this field in Sweden. But on the agency side, on the approval side, FDA's guidelines is more sound and more well developed. They're more ready to take on models. And another comment is that researchers are slower than companies, so for instance AstraZeneca, to transition to animal-free methods. And therefore it's important for decision makers like politicians that they invest in new methods to make it easier, and new incentives and new ways of evaluating research applications, and more money and so on, to stimulate the transition to these type of animal-free methods when it is sound to do so. It's not always, it's only when you have sufficient alternatives, but these alternatives need money. So the Swedish model, and important next steps in that. So as has become clear in the treatment of the COVID-19 situation, we dare to go our own way and to lead the way. We're a strong research nation, and we have strong and independent authorities. We had that for hundreds of years, ever since Axel Oxenstierna, one of the founders of the Swedish model. But what we need to be stronger at, and is the thing that FDA is strong with, and that is to integrate in the authorities research. So we need to have a stronger bridge to research, and we are developing a replacement network for that, and the 3R Center is in place, which is doing this, but this needs to have continued funding, and it needs more funding. This FDA's principle on model reliability needs to be transmitted into more and more applications, and it's only when they are fulfilled that you really should use a model. And we need to invest now in mathematical models so that we can act fast and wisely in upcoming crises to solve the healthcare crisis and so on. So if you find this interesting, then please feel free to contact me or to contact Wolfram MathCore, because we do things together. And now we will move on to some presentations. In the next presentation, we will see their tool being used to do some simulations for decision making in COVID-19 and epidemiological modeling. So that was it for my presentation.